For a long time it was known that the good guys and the bad guys of Assassin's Creed games were the Assassin Brotherhood as the good guys and the Templar Order as the bad guys, but as the lore had recently been more expanded on, we would see that both organizations have gone by many names throughout history. But one thing that has been missing is the emphasis on the other factions of the Assassin's Creed lore. Fast forward to the modern day is when we would see more of these factions have a bigger impact on the modern day lore of Assassin's Creed. With the research I did on some of my most recent Assassin's Creed videos, which I urge you to go watch, I decided to make this video about the different factions of Assassin's Creed. We already know so much about the Assassins and Templars. I won't be talking about them, so let me start off by mentioning the factions we don't know much about. And the factions are the Erudito Collective, the Instruments of the First Will, and the Zhao Wang Corporation. These are the biggest organizations that have existed outside of the Assassins and Templars, which I haven't seen a lot of people talk about. And now I'll get into each organization that I mentioned. The Erudito Collective is a hacking collective which is an exclusive group of hackers that operated inside of Abstergo Industries. Erudito's leader is unknown, and the amount of members is also unknown. They operated to expose the truth about Abstergo Industries, with them using many different forms of communication, but most notably, they use emails to contact people. And this would be the way that they would contact Desmond Miles, and how they would become a bigger part of the modern day Assassin's Creed lore, of getting more involved with the assassins, seeing as their interests would align with each other since they have a common enemy, that being the Templars, now known as Abstergo Industries. They would also work within Abstergo to reach out to people and expose the truth. The Erudito Collective is still active to this day. It would be 2010 when they would start having more of a role in Assassin's Creed games, with them reaching out to Desmond Miles in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and giving him all the passwords of Lucy, Sean and Rebecca's emails to where you can view all their emails with each other. And this is something that you can completely miss if you don't explore Monteregione in the modern day of Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. To fast forward a little bit, the Erudito Collective would eventually meet in person with assassins to arrange an alliance which would prove to be successful, but this would be the time that Abstergo would figure out where one of the Erudito Collective hideouts are in Argentina, and they would attack them, leading to the destruction of the hidden Erudito Collective hideout in Argentina. The history of the Erudito Collective doesn't have much context to the topic of this video, so I won't go into all the details about them, but the last main point about them is that they had a run-in with the Instruments of the First Will, and this is where I will get into the next organization. The Instruments of the First Will were an organization that worshipped Juno, also known as the Juno cult. These are people who believed the Isu to be gods, but they mainly based their beliefs on Juno. The Instruments of the First Will would prove to be a very dangerous organization because they basically infiltrated the Assassins and the Templars, with them heavily influencing both organizations to secretly carry out the will of Juno. And for context, this would be highlighted throughout the Assassin's Creed games, and it would be more so presented in Assassin's Creed 3 of when Desmond would sacrifice himself to save the world by releasing Juno from a digital prison, and this would mark the first milestone for the Instruments of the First Will, because then their next plans would begin, which would be to resurrect Juno to the real world. The power and influence of the Instruments of the First Will was so great that it had people on both sides defecting. The Assassins and Abstergo would both notice the growing threat and would even temporarily form a truce on different occasions to effectively deal with the Instruments of the First Will, because they used both organizations to get what they needed to bring Juno back. And to fast forward a bit, the Instruments of the First Will more aligned with what the Templars wanted, how they have an obsession with the Isu and pieces of Eden, with them even being referenced as the true order of the ancients. The long story short is that the Assassins and Abstergo took them out when the Assassins killed the resurrected Juno. The Instruments of the First Will then fell apart with very little trace of them left, and this took place in 2018. The Jangi Union is an organization started by Edward Kenway, which would serve to be its own body besides the Assassins. Even though it was started by an assassin and had many assassins within it, it would be its own organization that had align goals with the assassins, but those aligned goals would later be brought to question on differences in views about the pieces of Eden and how they should be used. This is when the Jangi Union and the assassins would split and no longer work together, and the Jangi Union would then focus more on growth and becoming more established. The Jangi Union would function more like Abstergo, of being a front for what it actually does. It started out as a merchant company, and it would evolve from that, just like how the Templars would evolve to being Abstergo, the same case being with the Jangi Union, and with them even working with a subsidiary group called Doom Eagle, which would function just like Abstergo's Sigma team. The lore of the Jangi Union is detailed, but not with things that have context to the video, so I had to summarize quite a bit of information, so if I maybe missed a detail or two, I apologize. But with regards to the Jangi Union, they are still active and are said to have joined forces with the assassins again, and I think their lore is still being expanded upon, so new details might be added, but so far it's really interesting. So far these are all the main organizations I could find. There were others, but all of them died out. The ones I mentioned in the video are ones that had a major impact on the overarching narrative of the whole franchise of Assassin's Creed. I thought that I would just make a video about it because it is pretty interesting. Assassin's Creed lore in the games is nothing compared to what goes on in the lore, and it really shows you how passionate people are about Assassin's Creed. But with that, this is the Chilly Man signing off. I thank everyone for watching. Peace out.